Hello, welcome to The Exhausted Programmer. My name is Alexander, and today we're finishing up the series where we take a script that makes a script into a script. So this is part 3 of a series. You don't need to see the previous episodes to understand what's going on. There'll be notes in the description so that you can try this stuff at home, and everything should just work in that one directory that I link. But in today's video, we're going to wrap it up where we're going to show off how we can write a few bash scripts that we can use to make a simple script for these videos into a bash script that I can run while making these videos so that the text output is clean and I can control what's on the screen while also making sure everything works. Because instead of just faking everything, all I'm doing is faking the typing. The output and the actual work being done behind the scenes is the actual work that you see on the front of the screen. It's just an extra layer to make things run more smoothly. I do want to point out that while I am trying to make this work exactly like how I use it, I don't have everything just sitting in the same directory. I put stuff in logical places. And as I've mentioned in the previous videos, I encourage everyone to try to create their own instead of just copying what I have, because you're going to want to make things fit more to your expectations than to mine. I did try to make this a little bit more generalized for this video so that it can be a good starting place for you. We've already looked at bash colors in the previous video, but it's just a place where I have a lot of colors defined that make getting the right green and yellow to the screen make more sense. We will be looking at this YouTube script later in the video, but right now I just want to show that I have this script file, which in this case doesn't have a lot of comments in it, but as you can see, it is the video about the video that we're doing, and you'll see us going through each one of these as we go forward. The way this works is I run this YouTube script setup here on the text file, a lot of flashing, and now we have a new file here, which is a script.sh file. The name does come from here, so if I gave it a better name, which I should have, instead, now we just run the /script, and when we do, we are now into the script itself. And the first thing that the script has for me to do, if you saw it as I was scrolling past it, is to cat out the bash script.sh, another one of those files that we saw, because it's pretty simple. Here, we're going to use the bash colors by sourcing it. You can use the word source or the dot, they're the same thing. We're going to define some variables that we can always change in the middle of our script if we wanted to. I won't be demonstrating this here, but it's important to remember that bash variables are global. So anywhere later on as things are being executed, if we redefine speed or the temp prompt, these values will change. In fact, we're going to see in a second why these global variables, how we're going to use them. And here I have this read line, and what the read line here does is just wait for me to hit enter. That's why when I ran the command, I had to hit enter again for this to start coming up. Also changed the directory name in case you noticed. That's because it is defined here. And since we're using this to demonstrate this, it is already changed. I clear the screen. This is something for this video that I didn't do, that isn't in my normal, because I'm trying to make sure everything fits on the screen while keeping the code very simplified. So clearing the screen before we echo out the temp prompt, which is, my username, the $sign, in C to go back to no color for the colon, and then, yellow for the YouTube and whatever. And then it's going to move the cursor to the right one, which we also looked at in the previous video, but A, B, C, D moves the cursors in the 4 directions. A is up and C is right. And then we echo out the variable, the script text, which is not defined already, but we'll use this as a way of passing in variables. Note, I didn't actually pass in variables into the function here. It's going to look at the global variables and pull that. We're going to pipe it into PV with these flags, which again, we talked about in the last video. But this is what makes the text to the screen for this part go slower. So this echo is instant, so it's a cursor movement. But when we get to typing out the command, that's the part that actually goes at typing speed. But the thing is in the background, bash scripting actually did get catted to the screen. That's how this got here. I fake the prompt, I fake the typing, but this command actually did run. That's how I know that what I'm showing is true, because the command itself actually did run. Now that we do have defined next input as a function, how do we use it? Well, we need to give it a script text variable, which we can just set anywhere. We also need to source the file. Forgot about that step. But now that it is sourced, it is in our system, in our session, our bash session. we define the script text, and then when we run next input, it will do what we expect, which is to put the echo hello on the screen and then actually run the command. The next input doesn't run the command. The script that we're going to use to make the script that I'm running right now makes it run the command. We'll see that in just a second. In fact, let's just go ahead and dive into that script because that's where all the magic happens. I write a simple script that we saw at the beginning. I pass it through this one bash script, and that will make the bash script that I run for the videos. It is a little on the long side, so instead of cutting it all out at once, we're just going to go section by section. Let's look at the first 12 lines. It is a bash script, so, standard protocol. Anytime I'm writing something that there needs to be an argument provided, I like to do some little error handling here. I try to keep my scripts simple, but I might not do bash videos for, months in the future. And when I come back and I'm like, how does this actually work? It would be kind of cool if it would just tell me when I try to run it, if I'm running it wrong. But we are going to pass it in a argument. As I did in the beginning of the video, we passed it in script.txt. And what that's going to do is use this base name function to get the original name. So it's going to strip out like the directories and slashes and stuff like that at the beginning to just get the base name of the argument. This way you can run it on files that aren't in the same directory, which is kind of how I run it. And then we're going to define that file name a little bit cleaner by taking that original file name, using a little bit of regex and bash interpretation, and then append the .sh. And so that's how we go from script.txt to script.sh. This percentage sign here is how we grab the last dot and everything after it. If you have more than one dot in your file name, which I thought I might use in the future, so far I haven't, this is how you make sure you only grab the last dot. This works because bash will try to make this matching pattern be as small as possible. So the first dot and it's done. If you put in a second percentage sign here, then it will actually go for the first dot. If you want something in between, well, you might need to write it a little bit differently. And then we just copy over the whole script over into this bash script that we are writing. And we're going to run a bunch of vim commands on it to alter it as we go forward. So the next few commands to look at are these vim commands. They're all going to follow a similar pattern, vim-c, and at the end plus wq and the file name. This is a file we want to change. This saves and quits because when you run the command, it just runs the command on the stuff. But if you don't save it, it doesn't stick. There are other ways I could have, changed out this stuff using sed, using awk, using any number of tools. But when I was writing this, I was in a vim state of mind, so I went with vim. Something to note in my scripts, both for this video and previous videos, is I use this pound sign, octothorpe, whatever you want to call it, to represent comments. And that's very useful and is now standardized in my scripts because this is how it knows not to touch those files. So what we're going to do is match every line that does not begin with this token here. The hat, as we've seen in previous videos, tells regex to start at the beginning of the line and then find this. Without this, any line that had this symbol in it, in the middle, at the end, whatever would match. But with the little caret sign here, it says only the ones that have it at the very beginning of the line. For the lines that do not match, so for the lines that do not have this symbol, we're going to start at the beginning of the line and we're going to put in 2 exclamation marks, and then we're going to save and quit. What that means for this video is that this script starts off with 3 lines with the pound sign and then a space and then cat bash scripting. So the ones that had the comment marked, nothing was changed. The empty line and the line below it, the cat bash scripting, now has these exclamation marks on them. It doesn't make sense to have it on the blank lines. So the next thing to do is if it only contains those. So if it starts, has the 2 exclamation marks and then ends, this is how you get to the end of the line, then it will just blank them out completely. If you're worried about having too many blank lines at this point or anytime, there is ways of removing duplicate blank lines, that is back-to-back blank lines, and reduce any number of them down to 1. We're not covering that in this video because I don't think it's necessary, but it is there. So be free to have as many blank lines as you want. You can clean it up with a simple line of bash. In fact, then I'm going to add in blank lines to make sure the commands are separated. In this script file, they're already separated. But sometimes when I'm writing this stuff out, I'll group commands together if they really fit together in the flow of the narrative. But if I need to debug my script file, it's good to have them separated out. So we're going to, again, use the string match where the V gets all the lines that did not match the regex. G does match everything in this regex. So every line that has the 2 exclamation marks at the beginning, which are the commands that we want to run, what we're going to do is run a normal command, space, 0. If you're in Vim, you're not in insert mode, you're not in visual mode or any other mode, just doesn't say anything at the bottom. That's the normal mode. And if you're in there and you hit 0, it will put you into input mode one line below where your cursor was at and create a new line for you to do so. And so this is a good way of creating blinked lines. Let's look at these commands now more one at a time. It is going to take a little bit longer, but whatever. Now we're going to take all the lines that have the exclamation marks, which again are the lines of the commands we actually want to run, and we're going to copy them right below themselves. So it's going to make a duplicate. So the comments are staying the same. The blank space is still a blank space because we added and then removed the exclamation marks. But the catting of the bash scripting file now is back to back, and both lines have the exclamation marks in front of them. Except this symbol here, it works the same way in the Vim command as it does in bash. It pipes the output, and then it's going to replace the string of nothing with nothing globally, save and quit. And that's okay. It doesn't read the best. And I even passed this into ChatGPT just to double check that, that I wasn't losing my mind or anything. And ChatGPT also thinks that this was a bug and an error, but it's working here, so you know it's not. And the reason why is because when this is blank, it will actually look back at this global variable set here. And so I didn't need to type it in again. I'm not even sure if I could type it in again. I'd have to go back and think about it for a second. But whatever the case, we're going to have the line with the exclamation marks and below it the line, same line without, because without the exclamation marks, it will actually run the line as written. So all the commands that are written will run as written. And that's how we get the actual data being produced and put on screen, because I'm not messing with standard error, standard out. All that stuff is going to go to the screen as normal. But now the exclamation marks represent the commands we want to run, but that we want to make it look like it's running. So when I talk about my script sort of separating out the front end from the back end of running this bash stuff, this is exactly the moment it does that. The ones with exclamation marks at this point aren't going to run. They're going to be echoed to the screen in a nice, clean, typo-free way. Before we get into all that though, I did have to add a couple of lines, or I guess one line and a comment on that line specifically for this video. So let's take a look at that. At this point, there is a command of next input that was there because it's in the script and I wanted to show it, but calling it directly messes up with some things. And so I could have found a way of string replacing it with a more robust version of itself, but I did create a fake next input that we can look at in just a second. And so it's just going to grab that. It's not going to grab the one with the 2 exclamation marks, which is why next input did come out on the screen as we were running the script. But when it went to go run it, instead ran another function that I wrote and imported secretly elsewhere. Again, all the code that's running here though will be available in the repository linked in the comments, so you can see exactly how it works. But let's go ahead and look at that fake next input just to put everything on the table. It's going to grab the temp prompt. It's going to do everything just like before, except for the clearing, which is why that was the one case where you saw 2 prompts on the screen at once. And then it's going to print on the screen the echo hello, and then it's actually going to run echo hello. This is happening because one, the script text has been set. So it's no longer echo hello as we had set it. And then in order for it to run, instead of the command being there to run, the command is next input, or I guess in this case, fake next input. So I needed to simulate it. This is just to make this video go a little bit cleaner. And you can see how simple it is just to make little changes to make the output look better. Go back to the YouTube script file. When I'm making these videos, there's a lot of things that need to be escaped out. For this video, I only need to escape out the quotes. This was needed just for the line where we set the script text in the script, and those quotes would have caused some problems when we converted things over. And so for that, this is useful. And I guess I should have mentioned this earlier, but the 2 exclamation marks are a really bad token to use for this kind of stuff, because bash has an interpretation of these. And if you want to try these out by running them in a bash shell, it's not going to work. What this does is it takes the last line of input and puts it directly here, and then it tries to run the line with that replacement already happening. So if you're trying to run this in a shell, in a bash shell, I don't know about all shells, but in a bash shell, this won't work. You'd have to do the backslashes to run them manually. But it does work in the scripting, which is kind of neat. Also, if you're running this in a bash shell, the backslashes are going to be interpreted before the line is going to be ran. So you need to escape this backslash and escape this backslash in order to have the 2 backslashes being passed into Vim, and then Vim needs this one to be escaped. So that's why there's 2 here to say, no, we do want a backslash here, and to put the quote here. Also, I try to use double quotes when I'm doing strings, but that would have just required even more backslashes. So I just went with single quotes on this command, where all the other commands I'm pretty sure are double quotes. That's just to prevent the sheer number of backslashes I was dealing with while debugging this. Now we're getting to the end of all of our changes. Again, the exclamation marks are not the lines that are going to be ran, but the ones that look like they're being ran, while the things that are actually ran are done so without being put to the screen. And we need to get rid of some loose ends. So each line that we want to put to the screen will be an echo command, and it will start with a quote and it will end with a quote. And so we want to put in the ending quote now, where the caret means at the beginning of the line, the $ means at the end. And while this should read as string replace the end of the line with a double quote, it's not going to replace the end of the line. It's just going to put it there at the end of the line and then run this. Again, these are now double quotes. So in order to put a quote here, I had to escape it. But that's not as annoying as trying to escape it while also trying to escape the escape sequences and all that we saw previously. We do still need to change the front of the line, but until we get there, we still have some things to do while we still have the tokens there. And the next one is to put in the command for the next input. We saw earlier how we can use a normal command to simulate as if we're typing on a keyboard. In this case, we're going to do the O, which creates a new line, but we're going to provide text, which is next input. If I put a space in between these, it would put the space in front of this and it would just look weird. I do want the formatting to sort of look good in the script, even though I rarely ever go into them. The exclamation mark here, as the note says, is to prevent recursion. This is how it is in my default programming, and I even have an old note. I don't think it's needed, but I do still have it. And anyway, this just is good to help prevent recursion. That's a comment I read, and I'm going to keep it in because with it or without it, it seems to work, and might as well have it in there. I realize that might not be the best practice to have something that you don't need, but this isn't in production code. This is run once a week code at most. I guess it's important now to sort of visualize the fact that we have this line with its command, and I'll go back to the cat bash scripting file, that now there's two exclamations in front of it, and the next line, next input, will then take what is on this line as the script text, which is what we're going to have to set next. And so the next chunk of code is doing just that. Not only are we setting it the script text, but we're actually now finally getting rid of this token. So we grab all the lines with the exclamation marks at the beginning. And so we're going to replace the two exclamation marks with the script text equals, we have to backslash this quote, so that it knows it's not the end of this one. We have to backslash this $, and then, you know, the color choice. And this is why the bug above, which I think I mentioned, we should have seen the text come out yellow because we didn't set the color after setting the color for the $. Here it did not, because I ran it through this script, which fixes it at this point. Close out the script, save and quit. We are done editing the file. Actually, no, we got to add something to the beginning of the file. In order for this to run, we need to make it clear to the operating system that we're running this in bash, so that familiar pound, exclamation mark, or crunch bang, or however you want to pronounce it, bin bash is at the front. I did use sed for this. I couldn't tell you why, but I know, you know, this just works. First line, insert this. 2 sets a new line so that, you know, there's a blank line between this line and this line, where we tell it to source the bash scripting that makes all this work. Without this, even though I sourced the bash scripting in my bash shell, it doesn't apply to the script. 2 new lines so that there's a blank line between this line and the beginning of our script, so it's clear there's a separation between the import statements. I should probably have a third one here to fit the way I handle things when I write in other programming languages, but I don't. And then we have to tell it what file to put this in for sed, and that would be passed in from what we set all the way at the beginning. And now the file is done, but I do want to then go on and do one more thing, which is to make it executable, which is, you know, it's a bash script that I'm going to execute. I could just run bash space script.sh, but I'm just more used to doing // and then tab completion, and it just works. And that's how that works. Now that my prompt has changed, I am back in my test directory that I used to make this. So, you know, my script is done. You might want to do something with your script so that at the very end of it, you can add in, you know, some sort of closer or something, again, to make your own, to make it your own, to make it work how you expect it to work. This is the reason why I kept this pretty general. If you do want to dive into this file, I was just coming in here, and, you know, you can just do this little £sign to comment out a line. That way you can see exactly what it's doing. You can append that to a lot of stuff. This isn't really a Vim tutorial, but a lot of IDEs and stuff have a way for you to just do something at the beginning of a bunch of lines, and then you can go down and just run it, and now you'll see exactly where we're at this point. If you are stealing this from me, quote unquote stealing, I am sharing this freely with no copyright on it, so take it. But if you are taking this, I would suggest just deleting these 2 lines. They really are out of place unless it's for this very specific video. But I did want to show that this script was working because, again, when we started the video, there was no script.sh, and now there is. And then this is why I have bash colors here as well, is because if we look at it, we'll see that's actually where I pull in the fake next import, because bash colors will be pulled in by bash scripting by script.sh. And so it will be there. So while I did say that this is sort of a stripped down version of what I use in my own videos, it really isn't that stripped down. There's times where I've used tabs and new lines, and I had to escape those specifically in order to make the output match what is expected based on what you're seeing on the screen. That's just some more escape sequences in that section where I escape the quotation marks, things like that, just to fill out and make it more robust for my personal use. But what happens is the file is like twice as long as what I showed, and all it would be with me explaining, now we have to escape new lines, now we have to escape tabs, etc. So I took those out. Hopefully you don't feel misled. The 5 files that were in the directory when we started this video is shared below. If you want that script.sh that is produced, well, just run the YouTube script setup script on the script.txt to get it. Maybe I shouldn't make you do that, but makes me feel like I'm leaving an exercise up to the user, and I'm a little bit more mathematical and academic. Whatever the case, if you like this video, there's a thumbs up. You can subscribe. You can leave comments about this video or any other topic. If you have a suggestion of something for me to cover, that's totally fine as well. I think I know what we're going to do next. It's going to be fun, but I'm always interested in hearing what people want to hear about. As you probably noticed, I've changed the thumbnails to these videos. I will continue to try to make that a little bit better than just black text on white screen. I also have a change for the theme coming up. I was hoping to have it in this series, but since I started this series without it, I decided I would go ahead and finish with the original theme. That theme will come back in some form or fashion in the future, but I thought I would just change it up with some different music at the beginning. Hopefully you like it, and thank you for watching.